is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowded Lake, and today we will be reading Broken Wings by GracefulRavenFeathers on AO3 fanfiction.net. I am a little slow today. We'll be reading chapters 10 to 13. All triggers will be in the description below, so make sure you take care of yourself because that is important. Please do that. And with that, let's move on to Chapter 10, Logan's POV. Logan was losing patience. They had been traipsing through the mine palace for days, following Remy's secret paths and shortcuts. Slip kept chattering the hallway, calling everyone girl and hun, while prattling on about Starbucks and cute guys and other such nonsense. According to Remy, they were going the right way, but Logan was growing worried about how long it was taking. Virgil had been missing for 2 weeks before they'd finished searching the upper levels and outskirts of the imagination. They learned about Remy's secret shortcuts and set out to rescue Virgil 3 days ago, and Logan knew the human body could only go 3 weeks without food before shutting down. Sides couldn't die permanently, but they could suffer from starvation like their host, and Logan knew Virgil was chronically underweight, only eating to appease Patton. All these factors added up to one conclusion, but that answer made Logan's blood run cold. Virgil may not be able to stand by this time they find him. He may not even be conscious. Logan knew that he had to tell the others. This was an important hypothesis, and it may hinder their rescue plans, but he didn't want to make anyone more on edge, or make anyone worry themselves, specifically Patton. However, Logan was logic, and facts had to come before feelings. I have been thinking. He began adjusting his tie a little nervously. A dangerous pastime, Roman chimed in, but his voice was off, lacking its usual spunk. I have hypothesized that Deciet may not be feeding Virgil, and if it is true, it may not render our rescue plans a bit out of date. He most likely will be very weak, delusional, if not completely unconscious. The silence followed was deafening. The word unconscious echoed off the walls. Suddenly, Patton began sniffling. Logan winced, looking back at the moral side. He wasn't sure what to do, but he knew he had to do something. So he carefully shifted into a bluebird and flopped over to perch on Patton's shoulder. He said nothing, just softly rubbed his tiny head against Morality's now wet neck. A soggy giggle escaped Patton as he stroked Logic's pristine wings. Logan felt an interesting, warm feeling in his chest. He wasn't sure exactly what it was, but it calmed him. He didn't know what state they would find Virgil in, but he suddenly had hope that they would save him, no matter what. Chapter 11, Virgil's point of view. Virgil woke up to the sound of someone humming near him. He was flat on his back, on a comfortable surface. As he cracked his eyes, he noticed how many blankets were piled on top of him. He was warm. Comfortable? Safe? Virgil racked his brain, trying to figure out how he got there. He'd been captured by Deciet, his old friend, who tortured him and killed him repeatedly. He remembered the whip, and then nothing. Kiddo! The voice near him had stopped humming. You're awake! Virgil's eyes snapped all the way open as he realized who he was speaking to. Patton. I'm so glad you woke up. I was so worried. Patton wrapped Virgil in a hug, and Virgil melted at the touch. He began crying, thinking back to all the horrors he had experienced. and Patton ran his fingers through Virgil's hair. It's okay. You're safe now. After a few moments, Virgil composed himself. Where are Logan and Roman? He asked quietly. He wanted to see the rest of his fam-I-L-Y. Patton's face fell, and he straightened. Well, kiddo. Virgil's stomach dropped at the father figure's tone. What was wrong? They don't want to see you. Wait, what? Why not? Virgil asked, voice cracking. It has to do with those. He pointed a finger at a space behind Virgil's head, and anxiety spun around to view his wings. They still looked a bit worse for wear, throbbing painfully. They say you're a monster, Morality continued. A freak of nature. Virg, why didn't you tell me? Patton's voice held so much hurt that Virgil flinched. He betrayed Patton, and now Logan and Roman couldn't even bear to look at him. He was a freak. A monster. Dad, I thought you trusted me, Patton whispered. His expression hardened. But I get it. I'll just leave you alone. And don't bother showing up to any more videos. You'd only make everything worse. And with those harsh words, Patton left the room, leaving a heartbroken Virgil behind. He totally screwed this up. He stood shaking, biting back a scream of pain as his wings tweaked. He noticed that someone, probably Patton, had bandaged his body under a loose black long-sleeve shirt and some of his purple patch sweatpants, but ignored his wings. Because they're disgusting. Virgil almost sobbed. He wished he hadn't been created with wings. That he was normal for once in his miserable existence. His thoughts were shattered by two sharp knocks at the door. Virgil opened it a crack, but was thrown back as Roman burst in the room. Logan, a few steps behind him. Virgil tried to interpret the fiery glare and dissecting stare. Demon! Roman called, summoning a sword. You are no longer welcome in this place. Leave, or you will be moved. Virgil gasped as the sword was leveled at his chest. He backed up, looking for help from the logical trait, but Logan just adjusted his glasses. You are nothing but a disorder, a disease. Thomas does not need you, and we could do your job for you. Get out. Virgil ran, wings trailing black and purple feathers as he fled. He couldn't tell where he was going. He just had to get out. He began hyperventilating, eyesight dimming. He ended up outside, breeze ruffling his feathers as he collapsed. As he blacked out, the scene shifted. Instead of outside, he was surrounded by walls. He looked up to see Landon, cackling. That was too much fun. Chapter 12. Patton's Point of View. They were close. Very, very close. Patton could feel it. Remy confirmed that they would soon be there, becoming more on edge than Patton had ever seen him. Patton nervously fiddled with the sleeves of Virgil's hoodie that he tied around his shoulders. He just wanted to get Virgil back, to hug his dark-skinned son and keep him safe. He needed to keep him safe. Suddenly, Patton's train of thought was cut off by an awful, blood-curdling scream. Patton froze. Virgil? Patton's voice cracked in terror as he took off toward the sound. The others followed closely. Patton just hoped they'd get there in time. When Virgil awoke, he wasn't sure what was real anymore. Did his fam-I-L-Y really cast him out? Had he been rescued at all? Was Janice here? Then, Deciet strode out of the shadows. Virgil tried to scramble away, surprising himself when he managed to move into a corner. There was no escape, but at least Janus couldn't rabbit behind him. It was a lesser of two evils. Well, look who's feeling better, Deciet purred. In actuality, every part of Virgil's body was screaming in agony, especially his decimated wings. But he sure as heck was going to let Janus know that. Glad to see it. Now we can have more fun. And, with no other warning beside that statement, Janus stepped down hard on Virgil's wrist. It shattered, unimpacted, with a sickening crunch. Completely blindsided by the pain, a scream ripped its way through its throat. Deciet chuckled darkly. The light sides are coming, he hissed. And I can't wait to make them feel welcome. Roman's heart was racing. The echo of Virgil's scream still rang through his ears. He just wanted to protect his family like a prince should be able to do, but he failed, and now Virgil was paying the price. He and Virgil's relationship had started off rocky, but he'd grown to enjoy the emo's company. He felt protective of him, to the point he'd occasionally check up on him to see if he needed anything or just someone to talk to. He turned the corner, half a step behind Patton. Both sides ran straight into a stone wall, Logan and Remy only barely managing to skid to a stop. Roman pounded on the wall, tears provoking his eyes. They were so close. In desperation, Roman drew his sword and began hacking the solid rock. He had to get through. Virgil could feel the hot tears streaming down his face as Janus kicked the ever-living crap out of him. He was curled up in a fetal position, cradling his broken wrist. His wings were folded, as well as they could be, and pressed tightly to his back to make him a smaller target. They didn't seem to stop Deciet from landing blow after blow. He kicked, punched, whipped, stabbed, as well as tormented Virgil's mind with horrible visions of his friends dying, or them casting him out, or the worst ones, they themselves hurting him. Strained whimpers escaped anxiety, echoing through the huge room. However, there was a sliver of hope. Vibration sounded through the walls, at times indistinguishable from the beating he was taking. But it meant something. It was on the other side. Someone was trying to come through, and Virgil clung to it as his tears flowed. They'll come. They'll come. They'll come. Logan adjusted his glasses for the 14th time in half as many seconds. He was studying the wall, attempting to find any weak point or secret entrance. His heart rate was too fast. He needed to calm down, to think rationally, but he could practically sense Virgil's pain behind the wall. The dark feeling and fear and anxiety caused touches of eyeshadow to appear around everyone's eyes. Roman, stop hacking for a moment, he called, voice cracking slightly with strange emotions. I need to inspect the door for any weakness. Roman didn't seem to hear him. His eyeshadow was growing darker than the others as Virgil's powers played off of creativity's own anxiety. His flashes were erratic, frantic. Logan didn't know what to do, and the very idea of not knowing what to do terrified him. It was his job to know everything. That is what kept Thomas safe, and now he was failing. He just hoped he could gain his composure soon, or Virgil would suffer for his inevitability to function. All right, ladies, Remy called. This is taking way too long. Virgil and I don't get along very well, but I'll give up Starbucks before I let him get hurt. So stand aside, babes. Remy set down his drink and reached into his jacket. He drew a huge rocket launcher and aimed it at the wall. Will one of you girls kindly remove Sir Stabbykins before he gets hurt? The last thing Thomas needs is 2 hurt protectors. Patton managed to drag Princey out of the way, and Remy fired the launcher with practiced precision. The subsequent exploded shook the Mind Palace. Aww, Remy cooed, sopping a kiss at the still-steaming weapon. Baby girl, I missed you. The explosion blew Virgil forward. Janice, seeming to know what was going to happen, had moved to the far side of the room in a flash. But Virgil, beaten black and blue, was caught in the blast. Luckily, he was only slightly singing through across the room. It hurt less than anything that had happened while he was captured. Unfortunately, he was a bit dazed, leaving him unprotected and limp as he struggled to regain motor function. The sight he beheld through blurry vision was that of angels. 4 figures, 2 in black, 1 in red, and another in blue, had weapons drawn as they entered his prison. He wasn't 100% sure if it was real, but he had hope. The sight Patton behold would be seared into his mind forever. Virgil lay in the middle of the room, looking small and broken. He was shirtless, his exposed torso and arms covered in all manner of injuries. Behind him, a breathtaking pair of black, silver, and purple wings lay maimed, twitching slightly. Deciet stood in the shadows, brandishing a whip and smirking. A yellow flash of light flooded his vision. Patton was suddenly back in his room. Deciet towered over him, half-snake features sneering down at him. Patton realized he was trapped in the form of a puppy. A rope around his neck. Deciet held the other end. He's completely at the mercy of the dark side. Deceit's scaly fingers, for some reason free of gloves, crushed Patton's cruelly brown fur. But there was nothing comforting about the touch. In fact, it felt intrusive and possessive. Patton whimpered and squeezed his eyes shut. I'm trapped. Roman was the imagination. He couldn't figure out how he got there or what was going on before. The only clue was the flash of yellow that had clouded his vision just before he appeared there. And yellow was Deciet. The cursed snake must have trapped him somewhere. He drew his sword, looking for danger, but saw nothing. Suddenly, something dark and very large dove from the sky. Roman couldn't tell what it was, but it gave off a powerful evil aura, so he transformed his sword into a long bow and took aim. Shooting was more of Logan's expertise, but Roman was the second best in the Mind Palace. He let the arrow fly and impaled himself in the beast, which stopped charging and began falling. It crashed a few yards away from the prince. Roman went over to inspect the creature, but immediately wished he hadn't. Virgil lay sprawled out in the grass, blood-stained, hands gripping the white arrow sprouting from his stomach. His breathing was shallow and labored, brown eyes devastatingly dull. Magnificent wings bloomed from his back, shimmering in the sunlight and dialed with the crimson liquid. Virgil? Roman fell to his knees in despair, cradling his friend's head. He looked down in horror at the damage he'd done. I trusted you. Virgil gasped, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. I'm sorry. Roman sobbed. Virgil coughed, a hacking sound that tore Roman's soul apart. As his friend died, he squeezed his eyes shut. I heard him. Logan found himself in the living room. He tried to remember what was going on, but all he could remember was the flash of yellow light. Thomas sat on the couch. He was expressionless, his face void of any smile he usually wore. Logan made eye contact with his host, and Thomas's eyes narrowed. Are you satisfied, Logic? Thomas's sharp tone caught him off guard. I do not understand. You never did. Thomas snapped bitterly. I've done everything you told me to do. I went back to school. I got a real job. I removed emotion from the equation. Logan's mind was whirling as Thomas continued to rant. And where did that lead me? I'm all alone. My old friends don't want anything to do with me. I have an education, but never really did anything with it because I have no time. I sat at a desk for hours of every day, wasting my life away. Are you satisfied? Logan closed his eyes, fighting the tears. I'd ruined everything. Romy didn't know where he was. He appeared to be alone, floating in space. Instrumental music echoed from somewhere. The 21 Pilots instrumental tracks, his jacket, sunglasses, and drink were gone. He felt exposed, alone. Sloop was a very social person, while Virgil was an introvert. Remy was an extrovert. They were two sides of the same coin, bubbly, moody, happy, sad, sunny, stormy. So while Virgil probably would have enjoyed chilling in the darkness alone, listening to music, Remy felt uncomfortable, restless. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. He hoped someone would find him soon. I'm all alone. Virgil looked in horror as all 4 of his rescuers crumpled to the floor, clutching their temples. He glanced back to Janice, wide-eyed. Like it, V? Janice hissed, drawing closer. It's called a marriage. I've trapped them in their own minds to live out their worst fears for the rest of their existence. You made the perfect bait, and now the 3 major light sides are all powerless to stop us from taking over. Virgil needed to do something, anything. Wincing, he drew himself up into a standing position, creating a barrier between his family and the dark side. He put no weight into his injured ankle, balancing on his good foot. He cradled his broken wrist, blood dripping from hundreds of cuts all over him. He looked weak, but his inner fire was burning bright. I won't let you hurt them, Virgil stated, spreading his wings to their full wingspan. He completely shielded them from Deciet. He knew he couldn't last much longer, but he knew he had to do his job. He had to protect them. Deciet sneered. So be it, little hero. Thank you for listening. The last 2 chapters, the chapter 13 and chapter 14, will be continuing next week, so please stay tuned. You could be notified when that comes out if you hit the subscribe button, and have more of a chance of seeing it if you hit that bell. If you'd like to follow any of my social medias, they're in the description below, such as Wattpad, Twitter, Instagram, my TikTok where I post Andershead's cosplays, and the channel Discord where you can talk to other Ducks and Drakes. Once again, thank you so very much for watching, and much like Patton trying to stay calm and Logan turning into a bird, do your best.